Hey everybody, Mr. Wagner here. We are going to work on Flappy2. Now Flappy2, this is where we're going to actually start putting some graphics on the screen. Now we haven't really messed with that, but these are graphics that are the Flappy Birds graphics. Okay, so to begin with, we're going to need to get the graphics and put them in the right folders, okay? Now, on my computer, I already have a file in Documents called assets.zip. I plan on having that as a download for you, but I also have instructions of how you would get those similar files from GitHub where somebody has created these, and they gave an MIT license. So I think we're good there. I don't think you're going to be selling Flappy Birds, but I think you can show it to your friends and family and everything's going to be fine. Besides, there's a fair use clause in copyright law where if somebody's teaching something, there's fair use in using somebody else's stuff. Okay, so as a former teacher, I feel very confident in this. So here we go. So I got this assets.zip file. I'm going to right click on this and do open with, and I'm going to do archive utility app. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a folder called assets. And within assets, I have two folders, one called audio, one called sprites. Now on the Windows side of the world, it's still more or less the same thing. You're going to have two folders, audio and sprites. Those two folders need to go inside the Flappy Birds folder. So all we have to do is we have to select these two folders and drag them into Flappy, and you'll see that they're there. Okay. Now if you look right now, I have flappy1.py, flappy2.py, and audio folder and sprites folder. And if I were to look in my audio folder, you'll see I have a whole bunch of sound audio. And I have in the sprites folder a whole bunch of different graphics, like here's the background graphics, here's the bird graphics, etc. So let's go into flappy2.py, which is right here where we are. And let's see what we can do about getting those pictures to import. All right, so in order to import files into Pygame, what we do is we create an object for the sprite, okay? And I have that code, and I'm going to go ahead and type it in, and then we're going to talk about it and hopefully get this thing running. Okay, so I'm going to type in class background, and then I'm going to say Pygame .sprite. And the second one is capitalized. And we're going to do this. Def __ init __. This is our constructor. Self, comma, oops. Guess it automatically fills that in. Image, file, location. Okay, so we're creating this, and we're going to say pygame.sprite _init, and then we're going to do self. Okay. I'm going to explain that one just a bit. Just hang on with me on these other things. And we're going to do self.image equals pygame.image.load image file. And we're going to do self.image.self equals self dot image dot convert, just like that. And then we're going to do self dot rect, the rectangle, is equal to self dot image dot get rect. And then we're going to do self dot rect dot left, self dot rect dot top equals location. And that should do it. Okay, now I want you to notice here, I have this class and I put this Pygame sprite here. Basically what I'm doing is I am inheriting a bunch of information from a super class. That class is called Sprite from Pygame. So I'm inheriting the Pygame Sprite class, and I'm using the stuff that already exists for that sprite, so we're going to be able to leverage that, and it's going to be really nice and easy. Just the same here on line 11, because I'm calling that bigger class, that super class, I have to initialize that super class, and I do that the first thing in my constructor. That's pretty typical stuff. For the purposes of this class, just type it in like you see it or copy and paste it, and you'll be good. Okay, so that's my background class, and we're going to do a couple things. One is we're going to create an instance of that class, which is our background. And then two, we are going to draw the background. So let's go ahead and do that. If I were to scroll down, let's say here, maybe right before game running, I am going to say something to the effect of this. Background equals background. Okay, and in here I'm going to have to put my file name. Okay, but we're going to do that a little bit different. And then we have to put a location. So I'm just going to put 0, 0. Okay. Okay, so here's something we're going to be doing that's new. We're going to be creating a file name that has that path. Remember, we put those sprites in another folder just to keep things more organized. That's all fine, but we want to be able to use that path in our code. So the way you do that, first thing we need to do is we need to go up here and add an import. And the import we're going to add is OS, okay, stands for operating system. That's a very typical import that many Python programs use. So you may see that quite a bit. Okay, and then down here where we got the file name, okay, what we're going to do here is we are going to say, let's say sprites folder equals sprites. I think that's lowercase. Okay, sprites folder equals sprites. And then we can say file name equals os.path.join. And then what we're going to do is join our sprites folder with our file name. And our file name in this case just happens to be background-day.png. Okay. Now, if I look at my project, if I click on this, I can actually go in here and look at sprites. Notice how it is lowercase. And if I look here, I see that there's a folder called a file called background.day. And if I double click on it, it'll actually show me what it looks like. So, you know, that's why you want to use a nice IDE like this, is because then you can do fancy stuff like that. So I'm going to minimize all that. But now notice how my sprites folder is here, my background is here, and then my background, this is all good, okay? But now we need to draw the background, okay? And the way we do that is we blit. I don't know if you remember blit from one of the last classes, but we are going to blit that background onto the screen, okay? And the command for that, screen.blit, and then we're going to put our background dot image. Okay, that's the image that is stored within the background object. And then background dot rect. And that's the rectangle that's within the background object. Okay, so we're on Flappy2. I'm going to right click, run Flappy2, and sure enough, I got my background. So, you know, that's good. Very nice, right? Okay. All right, so again, we have our Flappy Birds working, but what we're going to do now is we are going to put what's known as the base on the bottom here. And the base is a layer that's on top of the pipes, so you don't see the bottom of the pipe scrolling by. Okay, so we're going to do that. We're going to call the class the foreground class, but the instance of that class is going to be called the base. So I'm going to scroll up. This class called background, I'm just going to go ahead and copy that. Command C, Command V, and I'm going to rename this to foreground. Okay, so now it's foreground. And now what we need to do is we need to create our instance of it. And we do that before we go into the game loop. Let me just copy these two lines, 38, 39. And we are going to say the file name is the OS path join sprites folder. This one, it happens to be called base.png. And if I look at base.png, it looks like that part, okay? So there's base.png, and I'm just going to call this base equals the foreground, the file name, and 0, 0, but we really want that to go down 400 because it's going to sit there at the bottom. Okay, now I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and we need to actually blit the base onto the screen. So again, I'm going to do a copy and a paste. Oops. Forgot the S on screen. Screen blit. And here we're going to say base, image, and base rectangle. Let's see if it runs. There we go. Okay, so we have this base on here. And that works pretty well. Now, the next one, Flappy3, we are actually going to get that base to scroll across. And that scrolling base is a technique that a lot of these 2D scrolling games have. So you'll get to see how that scrolling mechanism works. All right, I'll see you there and looking forward to it.